would say lucky you. That expensive fan.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, I'm Eli Gilman from Montgomery County, where I'm part of the new Office of Innovation Strategy and Performance, but heading up A250 for Montgomery County. So it's a pleasure to meet you.
And
That's awesome.
he's one of our tri-county partners.
That's great.
Angela, you have to get the waiting room cleared out, or
Okay,
can
I
you
think I
actually
have,
turn it
it
over?
is. It is. I think everyone's in.
Um, but you didn't unsecure the share
Okay.
so that we can share, because folks will keep coming in.
Okay.
Sorry, we have a little technical assistance glitch. Beth,
That's
Emily,
all
can you
good.
get it yet?
If you make me the host, Angela, I'm happy to
Okay.
do what Karen's
Okay.
asking.
Got it?
How do I make you the host?
Knew you would say that. I am so sorry. Oh, Angela, what do
This
we
is
got?
my week for this right here. Reclaim host.
No, you don't want to reclaim. I am sorry. This is the
No,
last
you
time
just
that
took it
Angela
from me.
gets.
Don't do anything, please.
We are
And I
never
do
gonna
have
let
some slides
Angela.
to share. So whenever the
Oh,
time is
you
right, I'm
do.
happy to share those.
Yeah,
Okay, we are
good.
good.
You
Okay.
good, Beth
No,
Kay?
I didn't touch anything.
Don't touch anything, Angela.
Okay.
All right. We're gonna have more folks zooming in, but I want to be conscious of time. So actually, Matt, how about we do some rounds and we'll do a little bit of intros. Can folks nicely, kindly unmute themselves so that we can let Matt McCarrey know who's here with us today? And as other folks zoom in, we'll just come through. So I'm Karen Simmons. I head the Chester County Community Foundation, and with our cohorts, Angela Scully, who just unmuted and unshared, we keep running the 250 commemorations and celebrations for Chester County. And Matt, we're delighted that you've joined us this afternoon for the hour. We have a little bit of overview on 250 if anybody who signs in needs it, and then we're going to dive right in. And we put together a Q&A for you, but I think you're just going to talk about whatever you want and whatever people ask, and that is fine.
Great.
Angela, can you introduce yourself?
Angela Scully, I'm the outreach officer for and resource officer for Chester County 250, working with Karen. And my background is running nonprofit organizations and pretty much fundraising.
Heather.
And we ran into Matt when we were doing our calls with elected officials.
This is true. My name is Heather Reifer. I also work with Angela and Karen on CC250. And I've been working in heritage preservation and museum studies for the last 20 some years here in Chester County.
And Amber Grady. Hi.
Hi, I'm Amber. I'm the new program director over at Historic Sugartown in Malvern. I have a background in heritage management, and I'm excited to be here and hear what everybody has to say.
I was actually just with Barry yesterday.
Yeah,
who I guess
yeah.
is your boss.
Welcome, Amber. I was the previous director before Barry. Or
Yes, I saw your
Barrys.
name. I was like, oh
Yes,
my
yes.
God.
So anytime you need any information about anything, I told Barry last week, please you don't sit there scratching your head. I'm
Great,
around.
thank you.
That is too funny. Small world. Mary Schley, is it Schlechter? Can you
It is Schlochter,
Schlochter. Sorry, Mary.
and I am on the Historical Commission of London Grove Township. I have no credentials in anything history, but we're doing our best.
I am glad you're here. Thanks, Mary. And then Jason, I'm glad you're here, Jason. Can you speak up, sir?
Yeah, how's everybody doing today? I'm Jason Lang. I'm the Parks and Rec Director for East Goshen Township. And we are doing a series of America 250 focused events starting next year in partnership with West Goshen Township, because way back in the day, 250 years ago, we were at Goshenville collectively. So we're looking forward to a lot of fun programming next year.
Very glad you're here, Jason. And how is our famous blacksmith shop over there doing?
It's rocking and rolling 3 days a week. We're operating in there, so it's awesome.
Warmest
The
place
blacksmiths
in
are
Chester-
glad the weather's warm again.
Oh, yeah. I have so much fun every time I go over there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, very much so. Glad. Eli, do you want to introduce yourself? I'm going around. Do you dare?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Eli Gilman. I am the A250 coordinator for Montgomery County and also the new project director for the Montgomery County Office of Innovation Strategy and Performance.
In Florida today, we're jealous.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dealing with two young kids who are on spring break for 2 weeks and trying to find ways to work at the same time.
Good luck with that. There's a
Thanks.
beach. Use it.
Yeah.
All right, Todd Coachy. I see you trying to adjust your screen. Can you pronounce your name for me and tell me who you are?
Yeah, it's Todd Marcacci. I'm president of Under the Sun Productions based in Westchester, Pennsylvania. For 250th of doing two things. I'm the producer of the Salute to Independence Parade in Philadelphia, the 250th, which is going to be huge. And we've been working on it since 2022. But for here in Chester County, at least at this moment, we think it's going to happen. It's going to be a competition of world marching bands.
Bands.
And it's
Who
the
are the
world.
band?
Yes, it's the World Association of Marching Show Bands, and we renamed it yesterday as USA 250 National Championships. And so we're hopefully having this all nailed down by the end of the year.
Heather is a big band mom.
I have been looking for you. I heard that what you were doing, but I didn't know it was you. So I am glad you're here.
Yeah, so for everybody else, it's marching bands literally from Italy, Poland, Sweden, Ireland, Taiwan, Costa Rica. There's a whole list of countries that are involved, and then they'll be here in Chester County competing, and then they'll perform in the parade in Philly, which is on July 3rd, not July 4th.
That July 3rd parade in Philly with the pageant of international is incredible. I am glad incredible.
Todd, when are they marching in Westchester?
The field show competition is on July 1st.
Okay.
And that is a ticketed event. And we just haven't registered yet on the Chesco site yet until this is all solidified.
Yeah.
And then we think we're having the concert competition on the 2nd, which will be free to the public. So the field show is a ticketed event. Concert competition is free in Asplund Auditorium, and then they all compete in Philly in the parade on July 3rd.
Right.
Wow.
And the field show competition on the 1st is at Westchester University?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Got it. Thank you. Matt, you want to be here for that. Thank you, Todd. Rob, you had a few words. You might as well introduce yourself, sir.
Yeah, hi, Rob Williams. I'm the chair of the Historic Commission in Tredyffrin Township, which adjoins King of Prussia, Valley Forge Park. Also serve on the Chester County 250 Commission. And I'll just share my interest is both the municipal, we're a certified local government, but I also have established great relations with the nonprofits in my area. So also interested in how we can support them.
Rob, have you met Matt before?
We have not met.
There's more.
Nice.
Mark Clough, I see you there. Can you introduce yourself? Oh, you're muted, Mark. You're still muted.
Okay, how's that?
That's better.
All right, Mark Slough. I'm on the 250 Commission, president of the Friends of Martin's Tavern in Marshallton, and on the executive committee for A Path to Freedom. So I'm very interested in seeing what, if any, funding is going to materialize in the future.
Matt. Yeah, thank you.
He's an optimist.
He is a very good optimist. Allison Dobbins, I was in Kennett this morning. Can you introduce yourself, Allison?
Hi, I'm Allison Dobbins. I'm the Kennet Township manager. And so we're, obviously rich in history, and I'm always interested in understanding what funding options are available. So thank you.
Glad you're here. We're about ready to activate a Southern Chester County Kennett Square 250 group. So Allison's been really helpful with her team. Who else do I need? Mr. Edmund, Matt, you're here. Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, hi guys. My name is Matthew Edmond, Executive Director of the Chester County Planning Commission. Mr. McCarrey, Matt Bradford is someone I've known for a long time through the many years in which I worked for the Montgomery County Planning Commission. Matt is also my state representative. I live in East Norton, so glad to be here, glad to see some familiar faces, and looking forward to any insights that you might have. I work with the Chester County 250 effort as part of my role here with the CCPC.
That's great, Matt.
And David Blackburn, I can't see you. I don't know if you're there. David might have taken a break for a phone call. And Dan Campbell, I see you just zoomed in. Dan, I went by your beautiful architecture this morning on my way to work over at Stroud. Or if you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Dan Campbell. I'm a historic preservation architect in Chester County, practicing in the whole Delaware Valley, Maryland, and Delaware.
Glad you are here.
Thanks
So
for
anyone
that,
I
Karen.
missed?
Hey,
Anyone I
Karen,
missed?
it's David. Can you hear me?
You hear
Yes.
me, but you can't see you.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. The camera is on, but I'm here.
There you are. You just have to get closer.
I was attending another meeting, so we're doing introductions.
Yep. Glad you're here, David. Thank you.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for doing this. I'm with the Chester County Planning Commission and the Heritage and Historic Preservation Coordinator, County Liaison to 250, and looking forward to having you here. Thank you.
Great.
Emily, Beth?
My name's Emily. I do a lot of the marketing for Chester County 250.
And I'm Beth Krallis, and I work with Emily on the marketing.
There we go. So we're trying to get messages out. And is anybody else here that I missed? So Matt, seems to me that everybody on this call knows what 250 is about, so I don't have to do my spiel. but can people see the screen that I'm sharing with Matt's incredible Straight Talk photo on it?
Yes.
We'll make sure and send this out. So as Angela said, Matt's been really helpful in helping us guide some of the conversations we've been having as we've been looking to see where that magic pot of money is for 250 or is not. And as you know, throughout Chester County, we're trying to help people really throughout the region take a look at things they're already doing and places that are already existing and put a overlay on them for 250, whether they mostly have to do with the Philadelphia campaign and Chester County's role in the Revolutionary War and for the fight for freedom, and what fed into it, literally, from our agricultural bounty and iron, steel, and industry that forged our freedom, and the unfinished business on the path to freedom. These are very much we the people events that we're trying to really put out there and encourage people to do, and the planning is going beautifully. Really focusing today on, there are some heritage infrastructure improvement needs so that visitors have great experiences when they come to Chester County. And we've got some heritage centers and some apps, maps, kiosks, trails, all in need of upgrading, because we want to make sure that when people get here, starting with Lafayette's Bicentennial, which is now this year, throughout 2026. But for us also, these are legacy things that are going to last for the next 25, 50 years forever, because we don't stop in 2026. We keep going on through the Brandywine battlefield and the Valley Forge March in and as visitors come, we want them to get great experiences and keep coming back for the heritage economy.
I think what Karen is also saying is that this isn't just about history and citizenship. It's about the economy. So we want people to come, visit, stay, find out where they're going because we're hopefully get funding for signage and parking and ADA bathrooms. Those are the amenities that we're talking about. So I think it's important to sort of widen the lens.
Yep. The heritage centers combined with and the attractions combined with the main streets to really be a credible economic driver. It's a asset Chester County has had for centuries that really hasn't had the infrastructure that other places have, as in Jersey or New York or Delaware. And as the 250 Commission keeps adding resources to our website, Angela,
Yeah, I think it's important that you visit the resource page. Emily and Beth really keep it up to date in terms of things that are happening, and they push out any kind of grants that we hear about. Right now, we've been focusing on like the Semi-Q is going to reopen its funding portal next week, I think. And you usually, if you're either check the website or check your email, you'll get something on that. The funding has applications have been successful where there's collaboration, right? So I always go back to the Paoli one where we collaborated with the Memorial Grove, the Battlefield, and the Borough to put an application for a heritage center there, because it has to be either, if you read the directions, it's always a nonprofit or a municipality. So check this page, use the resources, and look around and collaborate if possible. I think, Matt, you have anything to add to those words of wisdom?
Well, I want to thank you, Matt, actually, because I know you're fully responsible for this. When I saw the PA.gov.grant stuff come out this past year, I thought, oh my God, perfect timing. It's always been so hard to try to figure out various sources for nonprofits and municipalities and businesses. So that database is a godsend. So thank you, one, for that. And the fact is, though, a database can go so far, but you know so much more than what's behind that and how to navigate that. So we did prepare some questions for you, but basically you can talk about whatever you want.
Great. I did put a little presentation together and we can keep it pretty informal, but just wanted to at least give you a few things that we could tangibly talk about. And I can go through it, fairly quickly just to make sure that we get time for your questions, because that's honestly what's most meaningful to everybody is making sure what they have in their particular corner gets answered. But just really appreciate the opportunity. I work for the state legislature as a staffer, and in particular, I work for the majority leader, which is Matt Bradford, who represents the center portion of Montgomery County. So certainly not far from Chester County. And then to even make it a little bit more special, I'm a Paoli resident and a proud Chester County resident. So I'm
I told you, Rob. You got to meet.
Really grateful to be here and get to talk. I live right next to Paoli Hospital, so certainly familiar with the area. And, so this was a really cool opportunity. And so just happy to share what I have. But if I'm going through something and, if you have a question, just interrupt and interject. Like I said, I want to make sure that this is as helpful as possible. And I'm really here to answer whatever you need.
Matt, do you want us to share your presentation now? You want to do a screen share on that?
Yes. Can you see it now?
Let me stop sharing mine. And
I can see it.
There we go.
Yeah, we can see.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Everybody can see? All right, good.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is just our beautiful state capital. And kind of the lead into it is that a lot of times when I meet with organizations like yourself or municipalities, the biggest thing is people just don't know what's out there. And that even when you get a little bit of an overview, you just kind of start to think about all the things that you could get and start to tap into, especially because so many of these programs and a handful that I'll mention are all annual programs. So even if let's say it might not necessarily fit into the timeline of 250. Many of these will, but it's just good for you to know going forward because there's a lot of these things that you're going to want to continue to work on even after that date passes. Let's say you do get some funding even beforehand. You're going to want to build out that program, build out that project, and a lot of these things can help piece that together over time. So I just want to make sure that I give you a little bit of an overview of what there is at the state level so you can hopefully find your piece and bring it back to your specific organization or municipality.
Right.
So these are a few different things that I wanted to kind of go over. A lot of it is just really understanding what's out there because that's really that big hurdle. People just kind of assume federal and state grants are this big mystery. I have to admit, some of the federal grants, even to me, is a little bit of a mystery still, but I do feel like the state grants are a lot more attainable and they're much less competitive than the federal grants. And so that's really what I'm going to be going over today. And I think the most important thing that I'll be talking about is the value and importance of legislative support. I know Karen and Angela and I talked about this for a while, and I really can't understate it enough, just the value and the importance of it from getting something submitted, for a program that you find that meets your project, but then really getting it awarded, which is what the goal of every application ultimately is anyway, and then leaving time for Q&A, which is most valuable. So taking a big step back, this is how I always think about all the state funding tools, because you think to yourself, like, where do you actually begin in terms of thinking where the right and most appropriate way in state monies would come to your organization? And I like to think of it in terms of all of the different secretaries that fall under the governor. That's kind of how I situate it in my own mind. And each of these, from agriculture to transportation, has their own secretary and their whole own state agency. And each of those has their own different state grant funding opportunities that they run. And so given the work that you do, and I say this to whoever it is, a municipality or a nonprofit or a business, is that you've got to think about the work you do, the people you serve, and which of these categories do you find yourself in? And that's kind of what that first question is in terms of where you're thinking about the different opportunities, because each agency operates them uniquely. They all award them differently. And so it's just kind of helpful to understand from the big picture, the different pots of money in terms of the different agencies and the different categories. The one thing that I'll send that I feel people have told me is really helpful. I put this together about 6 months ago because there wasn't one like true comprehensive document that has all of the state funding tools. So this is a document that I put together and it has every state grant that has been opened within the past 2 years. So it's probably as available as a document and as up to date as anyone that I've ever been able to find. And it just gives you a sense of all of those different state agencies that I talked about. You can click into each of these categories and see all of the opportunities that are there. And you'd be surprised to know that there's at least 200 to 300 state grant opportunities. So it just shows you how there's so much that's out there. A lot of it won't be applicable to you in the work you do, but a lot of it will be. And a lot of the ones that will be are annual and they're going to keep coming back each year. So even if you apply for it and you get a small piece of it, you can apply for it again. And it's just this whole recurring thing where you can start to use some state monies to supplement some of your existing budget, because as a nonprofit like CC 250, you only have so much money to do what you want to do. And if you can't layer on state or federal money, you're kind of limited in what you can do in terms of any kind of elected project. So I'll definitely send this out just because I think, that's something that you can take back to you and your teams and review in your own time and really get a sense of like every single one that's out there, even in addition to the ones I'll talk about. So this was one of the big things that I can't stress enough in terms of what it takes to get something funded. Our office, and in particular me, I see a lot of the lists of who all applies for everything. And so I really do understand what it takes to get it from something submitted to getting it to funding and money in your door. And legislative support is so important from the state legislators. A lot of times people want to get support from a bunch of different people, from individual stakeholders and from other key groups, and that's all very important. But in terms of getting state money, your state representative and your state senator are both equally as important in getting that done. If you can get one state rep and you can get one state senator, it's almost like a multiplier of two. Getting two different legislators, again, is like a multiplier in terms of getting something funded. And what I would always recommend to anybody, if you have projects that you're working on in your municipality, in the county, getting that buy-in as early in the process as possible is just going to help make your chances of success that much better. Because if you bring a project idea to a legislator before it's something you even submit for, they feel that buy-in from the very beginning, and that when they see that list of who all applies in their district in front of them, it's going to jump off the page. If they've been there for a tour or a visit, or I've had a few communications with you and your team, it just makes them feel a part of the whole process, especially if they've given input or if their staff is aware of it. So that's really what gets a project that they might support, because on that list of who all applies for all these programs, they might support on the face of it 80% of what gets submitted. A lot of these are all really good applications, and you're competing against really good organizations like yourself. But it's like, how do you get to that level of a priority where instead of it being, you're in the 80% category, how do you get to that top 5% where you're either one, two, or three? I see a question from Rob. Go ahead.
Yeah, Matt, I suffer from 4 decades of working on federal DoD contracts. So I have this notion in my head that everything's objective and there's criteria. And yet I get confused when I hear, somebody like you say, oh, well, there's a way that your legislator can influence, help, push it along. I was wondering if you could talk about, objective versus legislator priorities.
Yep. So there's always some level of objectivity with these. Each grant that you submit to some degree gets scored, and that scoring does matter. But in terms of the eligible projects, if you're in some range of a scoring and you're past some threshold, to that point, a lot of times the legislators have a lot of the final input on it. So if it's not even like a pass fail, it's a little bit of a higher threshold than that for what's like deemed eligible. But in terms of like what really moves the needle, and not even just what gets funded, but even in terms of like the magnitude of the funding. Like let's say 3 projects get funded, you could do like equal on all 3. But if there's a different level of priority, one might get significantly more than the other. So it's a little bit of a combination of both. So I'm not trying to say that it's all discretionary and that it's all subjective, because there's certainly a scoring component to most of these, but it's just from seeing what it takes, it does play a big role.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I hope that helps. And so, yeah, just that whole continuous engagement piece, like making sure from the moment you have an idea of it, the earliest you can bring it to a legislator, to the end, like even after you get awarded, making sure they're there for whatever it is, whether it's like a check presentation or, a ribbon cutting, things like that. It might sound trivial, but honestly, it does move the needle and makes a difference. And
Yeah,
also in
Rob.
terms of like most impact to their district.
Yeah, Rob, I'll just say from 20 years of working in that world on the government side, and sometimes we were the ones making applications, other times we had our own programs to run. There's a little bit of subjectivity and a little bit of objectivity, right? And so you still score it, you still do it objectively, but there's always some level of sausage making where people talk and they say, well, what are the important things? And you go through and you say, well, we know between these 2 equal projects, this one is liked by such and such, and this one not so much, and that just all gets into the decision-making process. So it's a little bit of both.
Okay, thank you, Matt.
Yeah, and if you think about it too, like adding on to Matt's point there, it's like another credibility check. Like if you can get an elected official to sign off and put their weight behind a project, they're not going to put their weight behind a bad project and use taxpayer monies on a bad direction for an initiative. So it's a credibility check. You can almost think of it as just another way to score something. It's like the legislator's score.
Thank you.
Sure. And now I just wanted to kind of run through some of the most common ones. A lot of these would be eligible for any of the 250 projects, and all the ones that I'm going to talk about are going to be recurring ones. So those annual programs. I won't get into each just because I don't want to take too much of your time with this, but I at least wanted to give you an overview of some of the most common ones that I've seen for projects like I'm sure you're trying to work on. So the first category is kind of in like the recreation and outdoor space. which is a lot of some of the celebrations for the upcoming 250 anniversary. The first two are particularly good because you can almost fund anything that it sounds like in the name. So that first one, anything greenways, trails and recreation, anything outdoor, anything with the recreational space would be eligible under these categories. And you can get a significant amount of money from the state. So for that first one, it's pretty broad in terms of what is eligible. So even if initially you're saying to yourself, yeah, I don't know if my project necessarily would fit, this might be able to help even a portion of your project. Even if it's not the main part, there might be supplemental aspects of what you're trying to do that might have some component here that you could help. You can get up to $250,000 from the state, and there's a pretty low match relative to other state programs. So there's only a 15% match for this first one, which is actually pretty good. So whatever you get from the state, you and your organization have to contribute 15% of the total project award. So that's kind of what that means. The second one there is the same scope. It's the same type of things, anything greenways, recreation type, but you can get a bigger amount from the state. The only caveat is that you have to put up more yourself. So in this case, you could get $1 to $2 million, but it's a 50% match. So whatever you get from the state, if you get $1 million, you yourself or your organization or a private donor, whomever, would have to also put up that equal part. So it's 50-50 for your total project. So this is for those more mature organizations, or if I was thinking of maybe a true countywide initiative, something a little bit bigger than maybe a smaller municipality, just because of that significant match hurdle. The third one on this list is probably the best state program that's out there for a number of reasons. I mention it, even though it probably won't fit into the 250 timeline to try to get something done by summer of 26. But think of this in terms of, let's say you get some state monies for your 250 project, but it's not fully complete. This is a perfect one to try to supplement, to try to get those remaining dollars. So this program, the statewide local share account, is basically anything tangible, anything hard cost, any kind of improvement, whether you're buying something, you're building something, you're deconstructing something. It is as broad a definition of a grant as possible. And what's especially great about this one is there's a 0% match. So whatever you get from the state, your local org doesn't need to put up a penny from the project, and you can apply for at minimum 25K. So, I mean, that's a pretty, good number because it's not too small, but it's also enough to do a meaningful project. And then at most, you can actually apply for $1 million. So it kind of ranges the big to small to medium type projects. And so this is something that I just wanted to make sure I put out there, even though it might not necessarily fit into the timeline of 250, just because of the value of it. And I'm sure this is going to be something that you guys can tap into in the future.
And Matt, I'm going to posit that it does fit in the timeline of 250, especially in Chester County, because it's not an end, it's a beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of the things that we're starting that we can keep building and improving during 2026 for 7, 8, 9.
Also, I was going to piggyback on that. We've done a couple of these, Matt, and I'll say that one of the big hurdles is actually the timeline of finding out. I guess last year was an election year, so we didn't find out until like November, late November, when we had received the grant. So is that a little more on track this year? The local share ones?
We
Yeah,
couldn't
it's definitely more on
apply
track.
because the deadline to tell us whether we had gotten the grant was after we had,
Correct.
it was flipped. We didn't know what we got, so we couldn't apply.
Right. Yeah, last year was a little bit messed up. Everything did
It
get
was.
pushed out, but basically it's expected to award last year's round this year in September, and then it opens up for applications September, October, and November. So you'll know,
Okay.
well, you'll have that information before you apply again, because a lot of people had that issue where they were like, should I put in for it again? Do I know I got it or didn't get it? Or should I apply for a phase 2, assuming I'm going to get it? So I think
Yeah.
this year, now that the program's a little bit more mature, it's a little bit better in terms of the timeline. So you should have more of a runway to know what you got or didn't get, and then how does that influence the next application round.
I will also say from experience, they're so helpful when you call that office.
They're great.
They're actually talking to you and you know, it's not like a machine or whatever.
Mhm.
So
Right. And they
Well,
made
yes.
the process for applying for anything under this DCED umbrella. So it's the Department of Community and Economic Development. They actually made a single application for everything,
right.
and you have to fill in some supplemental information depending on each specific one. But they've made the process for applying for that and a lot of other state programs a lot easier. So if you've already done one state program, a lot of the information should be pre-filled, and at least it shouldn't be unfamiliar.
Matt, I just want to make sure that this group is aware, and if I'm wrong, correct me, but like these are programs that have been run for years that will probably be run for years after this. And so if we have a project or an effort that ties into our 250 efforts that meets these requirements, then this would be a good thing to go for. But if you wanted to fund certain things that might be specific to celebrations, this wouldn't be it. So if you want to build a statue to General Wayne, or you want to pay for offsetting the cost for a parade, like that's not what this isn't like 250 specific grants. These are general grants
Bricks
that
and
if you
mortar.
have the right type of project, you could go after this.
Interpretive signage is real important, whether it's 250 or after. So this is more the Heritage Infrastructure Network part, I think. And
Yeah, that's what a
also,
lot of the
as
state
I
funds.
remember, it's also got to be a municipality along with a nonprofit. A nonprofit can't apply on its own, so
Correct.
we will partner it.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about, collaboration. At
Right.
Paoli, we got the borough to apply
On
for
behalf
the
of the
other
nonprofit
nonprofits.
partners. And yeah,
Well, I mean, just to be clear, these programs, this isn't everything, of course, they fund, but you know, the Greenways, Trails and Recreation, the C2P2, you know, those will fund trails. They might fund parks. They might fund water improvement, water quality projects. So if our 250 efforts in any of our counties want to do things like that, this would fit. But this isn't necessarily, these aren't necessarily historic preservation grant programs themselves. We just have to keep in mind that there's a lot of things you could do in your celebration, your commemoration, and you know, if certain things fit these programs are eligible for it.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of what the state funds to that point is this is just a broader thing. They fund a lot of the hard costs, so like the more tangible versus the intangible soft costs like salary, rent, utilities. It typically shies away from that because of that a lot of times is recurring costs, and the state wouldn't want to set a nonprofit or a municipality up for failure where you get one-time money for, you know, multi-year costs, and then all of a sudden you have a hole in the next year and someone needs to get laid off. So that's just a general point in terms of what the state typically funds. And so I think it's a good point. So thank you for that. And then moving along, these are a handful of others that I thought was worth mentioning. I don't have to get into each of them. The one that I thought was particularly interesting, given its ability with some of the operational soft cost dollars that would be important to 250, it's called the Neighborhood Assistance Program. And to not get too complicated and too in the weeds on it, because it can be complex given that it's a tax credit initiative, basically the only eligible applicant is a nonprofit. So I know we have at least 2 municipalities on here. So not in the municipal realm. This is purely nonprofit. So CC 250 would be eligible. Basically what this is if you have existing donors, private philanthropy that you already have, people that you know are going to donate to you, this is a great program because essentially what you can do is, depending on what you're looking to accomplish, if someone has $100,000 donation they're about to give to your nonprofit, if they apply for this program in coordination with you and the state, it's kind of like a 3-part thing. You have a project you're looking to do, you have people who are looking to fund it, and you've got work you want to accomplish. If they give you $100,000, they could get up to 75% of their money back in a tax credit. And so what's especially good about the nonprofit is you guys don't even have to do the tax credit piece. You just get the $100,000 donation from your private philanthropist, and they get the added incentive of saying, whatever they donate to you, they might get up to 75% of that back through state taxes. And so there's a lot of value in that because if you have those existing relationships, it just gives them the opportunity to say, hey, you know, you gave $50,000 last time. would you be able to increase it knowing that you'll likely get a good chunk of that back from the state? And all you really have to do is just keep a pretty hyper local project. So it can't be something countywide. It would just have to be almost like municipal or even smaller than that, like neighborhood specific, which is a lot of what you could do for some of the projects anyway. So if that's something that is of interest, I recommend looking into it, especially if you have a good donor base and you have a good like philanthropy system, because it's just a good way to get a succinct project together, and you can use it for some operational money.
Matt, is that tax credit to the donor? Is it over a course of a year, or is it able to be spread out over multiple years?
I do think it's 1 year. So they would have to write some like pre-commitment letter, basically saying like if this project was awarded, I would be able to donate $25,000 to this project. And I do think it's in terms of 1 year. I don't think it's over multiple years. And so that might be a challenge, as I know some donors probably spread things out over a course of a few fiscal years.
And how much is there? And I know there's a component that they have to owe tax or pay tax in Pennsylvania. So a corporation would have to be paying taxes in Pennsylvania to take advantage of the tax credit.
Yeah, I think that's a piece of it. I don't think you have to have $100,000 tax liability to get 100,000 back, but that's some of the nuance that I don't know as well. But I've heard it's really popular, and it's a pretty easy program because the nonprofit doesn't have to get involved with the tax credit piece. You just have to work on partnering a good project to a good donor. Or a good company too. It doesn't even have to be an individual. It could be giant. It could be
corporation.
Yeah, it could be like your local community bank. So
good one. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, I thought that one was good. And then the other one on here that can do some of those like soft cost dollars is the second one. So it's called the FAIR program. It's essentially a housing program. So I'm not sure if any of the work that you would do would have some impact here. It might not, but anything that could do some type of impact with housing, even if it's historic housing, it would be eligible under this, and you can get a good amount of money from the state. Sometimes the awards are anywhere from like 250,000 to a few million. So just kind of wanted to mention it because I don't know if there's even one project out there that would be eligible, but it was just worth it given the magnitude of what people get from it.
The historic East Linden project is a neighborhood that's historic and at risk. And the FAIR program's been very helpful for them.
Oh, that's good. All right. And now these are some specific to historic preservation and the more 250 work. And these are all existing programs. These aren't like 250 specific, but they would be able to fund 250 type work. So you may already be familiar with the first category. So this is a pretty popular program. Essentially, there's really two specific programs underneath this Keystone Historic Preservation at the top. There's a planning side, and then there's a construction side. The two different grants are just like that. The planning grants, you can get up to, I think, $75,000 to do some historic planning project. And then you can apply to also get a construction one to kind of do what you just planned to do. And it's not like you need to one to do the other. It's not like you need to get the planning first and then get the construction. You can get one and not the other in either direction. But it's a really good program and it's an annual one. So this is just something that I think is worth mentioning. Candidly, I don't know when it opens for application. So I actually don't know if it's passed or not.
Just closed for this year, March 2nd, I think it was. March 1st, 3rd. And it has to be a historic property. It can't be like new construction of a new heritage center.
Correct.
It could be a renovation of a historic property on the register.
Yeah, the property needs to be either eligible for the National Register of Historic Places or listed as on the National Register.
Yeah.
Right.
And the deadline is the first business day of March every year, so it's still scramble at the end of February for all of us.
Got it, Dan.
You guys all know this one. Seems like I don't need to go over this one. You guys are well accustomed to it. The second one on here I think is pretty interesting. It's another tax credit program. And what's interesting about this one is if you can turn whatever historic site it is that you have into some form of revenue, like if there's some way to get revenue from it, you can get monies through a tax credit. So if you can turn it to something where you can get visitors where there previously were none and do some type of revenue source through tourism or otherwise, you can get money back through a tax credit. And that would help if you did some type of renovations, knowing, if we were able to do some renovations with the chance that we might get some funding back. I just thought it was pretty interesting. And a lot of people weren't familiar with this when I've spoken to people about it. So has anybody heard about this one?
Yeah, Duport Tie House is a good example of that one, Rob Williams.
Yeah, I took great note. Thank you. Something we'll explain to Matt later about.
Yep.
The third one on this list is actually more of an annual program. We actually increased the program by 100% last year in the budget, which we were proud of. So we got a good amount more for the program. If you know about this, it's probably because I think you're in the formulary distribution of it. I do think it's something that you either get or don't. And if you don't, I think you can apply to try to get it, but it is competitive to try to get in the mix. So you can get operational money from the state, and it's more of an annual thing. I think it's maybe somewhere to the tune of like $15,000 a grant now that we increased it by 100% to make it a little bit more viable for the nonprofits. But we were happy about that one, and we're hoping to add on that again in this year's budget. So
You
just
have to
something
be
to
an
think about.
official historical society, official county historical society for that. So that is the part that it's a great one spread throughout the Commonwealth, but it's for official historical societies.
It's places like the Mill or Historic Sugartown could get the cultural and historical support grants. It was for nonprofits. So I think the county historical societies had a separate category they could apply to, is the way that's set up.
And then I also just wanted to give them at least like my overview of what I've heard from some of the 250 monies, just because I know I talked to Angela and Karen about this, and it seemed like there was a lot of miscommunication from, I guess, maybe the governor's office as well as the PA 250 about some of their different things they've done. So I know at some point, maybe 18 months or so ago, there was a request for proposals, and many of you may have submitted proposals for different projects. And then you're probably just kind of like, well, where did that go, right? Like we submitted a proposal to the governor's office and not really sure where that went, but didn't hear if we got money or not. And so I did confirm with the Gov's team, and I also confirmed with Cassandra Coleman, who I'm sure you know, running PA 250, that the Gov's office did that request for proposals to get a sense of the level of demand for the state in terms of total project costs, and also to get a kind of a preliminary look of what's actually out there and the need. So if you didn't submit in that initial tranche, it's not to say that you're not on some list. A lot of people were like, oh, I didn't apply in that initial round. It's not to say you're not eligible for it. It was just an initial look at it. And given how far away ago that was, many of those might not be needed anymore. The cost estimates may have gone up or down or whatever, or they may have done some portion of the project. So that initial list was like a once in time thing that I gleaned from the Govs team, and it helped direct what they asked for in this last budget. And so what they're going to go to the table with for this coming year, because it certainly is on the table and a big item, they used a lot of that information to help guide what they would do with it, what a program would look like if they were able to get something meaningful up. So I wish I had like a more succinct answer to say, oh, yes, it's going to be $10 million come July 1st when we pass our state's budget. But the honest answer is, like, from conversations with the Gov's office and Cassandra, that was really a good starting point, and it gave them a good sense of what they would want to do if they're able to get something in the budget for this coming year, which we would know basically July 1st.
Matt, if I can make a point there, I
Sure.
attended both Southeast region presentations for that, Philly and Allentown, I think it was.
Yeah,
And a lot of organizations presented. There was a lot of work. There was a lot of enthusiasm. And I think what happened is there's a lot of disappointment as a result. They went to all 6 regions. They had 2 meetings in each region. It was a very, and now to hear that it's, kind of a budget exercise rather than an actual grant application is, I'm hopeful something good comes of that, but I can tell you there's a lot of energy in that first round. So
Yeah, so I guess to make it a little bit more clear, when they initially did it, it wasn't entirely to that end. They were hoping that there was going to be money in the last budget for it. But in the 2024-2025 budget, which was passed basically a year ago, there wasn't sufficient to open up some type of program. It was like a nominal amount. So the intent going into it, from everything I heard, was to do it. Like it wasn't just to waste everybody's time, but it just didn't materialize in terms of funding. So they had the projects, they had the shovel-ready projects. There just wasn't the money to back it up. So they at least used the information to some way to be valuable. But to your point, like it's obviously frustrating given like the way that they presented it made it seem like this was a guaranteed thing.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
That makes sense. Sure. Any other questions on this? I know this one left a lot of people disappointed, and even our office was somewhat disappointed just because we got interest from our own constituents and from Montgomery County. And it was kind of that same thing. Like people felt like they put a lot of energy and time into something that didn't end up going anywhere. So we're just hoping that in the budget that we can do in front of us, that we can get something meaningful. Because we were initially hoping for some monies from the federal government. I'm not sure what that looks like today, to be honest with you. There was a lot of talk in the past, 18 months that there was going to be some federal dollars to all of the states so that they could be the ones to pick some projects. And if you get federal money, I mean, it's like when the state gives a township money, it's like a huge difference in terms of magnitude. So we were really hoping that we'd get something from the feds, but I just don't know now, especially with some of the budget cuts. So that's kind of just a big open question. We might just have to find our way to do it ourselves, but that's something that we're just trying to work through.
I'm just going to also note that this ties back to something you said earlier, which is to keep in touch with your elected representatives, because all of these things, when you submit, it's very important to have them know that you're submitting and obviously the letter of support, but to have it in front of them, top of mind.
Right.
Matt, it's interesting because for us in Chester County with the 250, what it did is we had a big proposal for the whole county, about almost $9 million. And it gave a lot of excitement to people to think, oh my gosh, look at all the things that we want to do over the next 10 years that have to do with the heritage economy and the infrastructure. Right. Wow, if we could do this. And so it was that incredible feeling of this actually might be possible to do by 2026. And then as the reality has struck in, it's like, okay, no. Plan 2, divide it all up into little puzzle pieces and go back and do it local so that each municipality and each prospective heritage center with their app, map, and kiosk, we've got to do it very, very local. And there's no magic money for 250. Let's go back to what the enduring resources have always been, your prior pages. There's always been state DCED monies for different things. And this is going to last more than 250. So for us, it was it was a great way to take our plans and turn them into a fundraising case statement. And we had hopes probably for 6 to 9 months that, oh my God, this could work with a delegation approach. And now we're like, guess what? We're just going to have to do the jigsaw puzzle and piece it all out into the already existing resources, chipping it away. So, yes.
Registering disappointment.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just like expectation settings. Like it seems like they just set people's expectations that this was going to happen and it obviously didn't. Yeah. And so obviously it wasn't intentional, but you do get a lot of people planning that way, especially a nonprofit that is limited in its funding anyway. So, I mean, I'm not just trying to bash whoever did it. It's a lot harder than it seems, but it is a shame. And I hope we can get some meaningful funding in our upcoming budget, at least to make up for it.
But the plan still guides what we're looking for because it wasn't like we were chasing after a funding trail. It's like, this is what we need to build a strong heritage economy infrastructure in Chester County. So let's do it, piece by piece. Okay. Yeah.
So that's really it. I hope I at least give you some of the sense of what I know and some of the things that I think will be applicable. What I would say is, I recommend just shoot me an email even now or just shoot me a text. And I'm happy to keep your information down too. If if I know of anything that's coming at the state level, I'm happy to just let you all know. If you just send me an email, I can add you to a list, or I'll make a list of whatever we decide at the state level, whatever we get, if there's any supplemental funding, just to make sure everybody's aware of it. So I'm certainly happy to do that. But I appreciate all your time. I hope this was helpful, and I'm happy to take any questions at this point.
Other questions?
Rob, I see your hands up.
Yeah, quick one. To the Pennsylvania State Historic Marker Program, we kind of learned that there were priorities for, events in history and lack of interest in other events in Pennsylvania history. That was not in the RFP, but we learned about it afterwards when, our applications weren't accepted. So is there the same thing you think with these grant programs? There's kind of, higher priority things that are, the governor and they're just not clear on the RFPs, or what's your sense of that?
Yeah, typically, like the governor's priorities would be in the original program document. So I'm surprised that like something like that would come out at the end, but a lot of times before they make the grant document that has all of the specifics about it, like the eligible costs, the eligible applicants, et cetera, he would put his priorities in that. So you'd know up front. And I have to say that's pretty much been the experience too, where if there's something that's important to the gov's office or whoever's making the final call, a lot of times you'd see that initially, and it usually isn't a surprise. So that's disheartening to hear that, but it's not usually that common that you get some surprise like that.
Yeah, I think this was a subtle one, so it wouldn't have ranked in the RFP. But thank you for your answer.
Could you share possibly, Matt, that page that you had with the listings of possible grants?
Oh, Matt, we're just going to ask you to send the whole JPEG PDF to us so that we can put it on our website
as a resource
and send it out to everybody. Would that be
Yeah,
all right?
happy to. Yeah, honestly, that's worth just taking some time, or if you have somebody that's specific to grant funding at your municipality or org, like having them look through it, because there's so many that are in there. There's up to 300, and that was a point in time. Things can always get added, but that gives you a sense of where a lot of these state monies go. And even if you initially see it on its face and it's like, oh, that might not be eligible, if you even think a little bit, go to those grant guidelines and see, because some of these are more flexible than you think, and you might be able to find a way to put some piece of your project through that program. So I can definitely send that.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Matt, when I read the things in the governor's budget from, I guess it was last month or so, and Andrea and Eli can help with this too, because we were talking about it. What I saw a lot for things related to 250 for that whatever millions was that it was mostly on the sporting events taking place in Philly and Pittsburgh, and security and transportation, plus advertising, promotion, and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see anything for apps, maps, kiosks, byways, that sort of stuff. True or false?
Yeah, no, that's largely accurate, but the way that the normal budget process works is there's a lot of different categories that the gov's office like intentionally leaves out, knowing that it's something the legislature would put in. It's just part of like the back and forth of the negotiations. And so we know that's just one of those things where and I guess it's the gov's office, knew that the 250 money was something the legislature would put forward. So it's just kind of a weird inside the building thing. Like I wouldn't read too much into it, but from everything we've heard, it's certainly a big discussion item for the budget for what that's worth. But it is confusing to the public because you do see that you're like, oh, what did he propose for 250? And you see a lot of the security monies and then the sports marketing and tourism funding that doesn't necessarily tie right to 250, but it's just kind of like the back and forth of the budget negotiations.
I have reenactors football.
Reenactors football?
Football.
That's 250.
Yeah.
Good try. Other questions, comments, observations? It's already 1 o'clock. That happened very quickly, Matt. Anybody? Matt, you've done it. It's exactly an hour. Congratulations.
All right. Thanks.
And thank you so much.
Yeah, honestly, I hope I talked about what you cared about. And if not, that's my cell. So you can always shoot me a text or give me a call and I'll get back to you and hopefully get you an answer to something.
Thanks for providing your cell number. We will see you around Paoli, huh?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now I know where you live.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Hospital. Very good. If anybody wants to stay on for extra questions individually, we're here. Otherwise, go out, enjoy this incredible sunshine. Don't blow away. And 250 will be here next year. Onward. Thank you for
Thank
everything you're doing.
Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.